Great to see everybody on TBM Tuesday. We got a great event. I'm going to move real fast because we've got 4 high quality speakers and we got a great topic we want to talk about. And so we're going to jump right into introductions, and then we're going to go right into content. We want to get you guys as much value as we can here. So Dan, why don't you do a quick introduction?
Sure. Great to be here. Name's Dan Robinson. I'm the CFO of Technology and Enterprise Solutions here at Liberty Mutual. Have been at Liberty for about the last 19 years or so, and have been involved in TBM for the last 2.5 or so.
Excellent. Sheila?
Hello, Sheila Anderson, Chief Information and Digital Officer here at Unum Group. I have been involved with TBM for a very long time, multiple companies. I think 3 companies I've implemented TBM in.
Fantastic. Let's go to Tom.
Tom McHale, have the pleasure of being the CFO at Sunstream Business Services. Have been here for a little over 4 years. Have been involved in technology business management for over 10 years. And just recently, as well as some of these other individuals, had the pleasure of being added to the TBM Council Board.
Fantastic to hear.
Great. Tahir Yaqub, I'm a partner and portfolio chief technology officer at Global Infrastructure Partners, which is a part of BlackRock. We run the infrastructure private equity side of BlackRock. I've worked with TBM for over a decade as well at multiple companies, and we heavily use it across our portfolio companies. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Excellent. So folks, what you're seeing here, loads of different industries, loads of different personas as well. We've got the finance side, we got the business side, we got the technology side. It's going to be a great event, all board members as well. So where I want to start, two points I want to make real quick, and this will lead to the first question. The first one is that we have seen unprecedented investment in AI, and a recent article I was reading says that almost dollar for dollar, every dollar going into AI is coming from SaaS. And so the question that was posed in that article was, how are people maintaining and running the business when you're being starved of investment? And then how are you creating value on the AI side? So 2 seminal questions. The other piece I would bring into that, Forrester, a blog of theirs recently talked about back in the digital days, we built a lot of things that nobody ever wanted. And are we doing the same thing? So the challenges that I want to pose is to the group, and I'm going to start with Tom. Technology is more important than ever before. We got to be able to run the back end while doing the new. So talk to me a bit about how you guys think about that importance of technology and how you're approaching it.
Yeah, so technology is very much, I mean, it's as important, it's potentially even more important than it was before. And to get back to your point, I mean, I think it really comes back to being able to leverage and utilize TBM and be able to talk about the value, to be able to generate and be able to have those key discussions around what you ultimately want to do. So even though it's as important, more important than it's ever been, I think that you're still grounding yourselves in the same things that you have been doing to prioritize your investment and make sure that you're not making hasty decisions and you're doing it in a way that still brings value to your company.
Excellent. Sheila, let's, as you do that and build on what Tom was talking about, I'd also like to see like anything you can add about that movement from, the core business to the AI world and how you're thinking about that.
Perfect. Yeah. To me, technology is definitely not a back office enabler of the business. It's front and center today, especially with AI. And how I look at it in insurance, it's our engine. It determines how fast we can price our risk, how confidently we underwrite, for example, how efficiently we're handling claims, and ultimately how well we're serving our customers. And if you really think about it, underlying data, platforms, and AI, we're all moving from reactive to proactive, especially with AI. If you think about loss prevention, detecting fraud earlier, coverages and services to individual needs and insurance, that's all what it's doing today in predicting that. So technology, in my opinion, has to be discussed at the board level with the same breath as capital and your overall strategy. So when you think about a TBM lens, you really have to translate your spend into business aligned outcomes. And we're really focused on that even as an operating model today. So you think about lower loss adjustment, faster cycle times, improved customer persistency, which all of us in insurance have as a key measure. Technology teams are making clearer trade-offs and investing in capabilities that are going to most directly align to our customer experience, our outcomes, and ultimately profitable growth. So that's in summary how I see it.
Excellent. Now, I think we heard a lot from both Tom and Sheila about value, right? How do we turn technology into business value? And that's a critical point of where TBM really starts to shine. So Dan, for you, as your company, I know you guys do a lot with TBM. You have a whole lot of spend going through and things like that. Can you build on that a bit and help folks understand, where's technology, how you guys think about it, and then how you tie that to value?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think the main point is kind of goes back to like, how do you make sure you're bringing your stakeholders along? They're going to come along because they care about the impact that it has. And to Sheila's point, and you don't often get two insurance people in the same spot here, but I think similarly for us, we have to make sure that every dollar that we're spending is ultimately either resulting in better customer outcomes or lower prices. And so ensuring that you have really tight KPIs and operational metrics on everything that you're investing in, and you're actually able to extract that and see it come through the P&L is ultimately our measure on a lot of these things. And we have, I would say, a lot of energy around some of the more traditional investments that we've been making and making sure we're getting value out of that. You need the same rigor as you're going into a world of AI to make sure you actually have the ability to measure that there's impacts and outcomes there. Otherwise, you're going to have sort of costs inflating without any true value on the back end.
Fantastic. Now Tahir, can you, a lot of the folks have already spoke are at larger companies, and, a lot of yours from a portfolio perspective starts to look at people that are probably a little bit earlier in the journey. How can you compare and contrast what you've heard from the folks so far about how you see TBM developing and the importance of technology for those companies?
Yeah, for sure. As Tom, Dan, and Sheila all referenced, TBM is really the foundation and the hallmark to be able to have those value discussions. And so we have a lot of multi-billion-dollar companies, but being private equity owned, cost is always of paramount importance, and every day and the time is an IRR. So it really is critical to be able to have those value conversations to actually understand your costs. The challenge that we have is time is of the essence. So some of these TBM journeys are multiple years, and even though we hold our assets 5 to 10 years, so they're not quick turnarounds, there's still time is critical. So I think what we're trying to develop is a rapid, fast-paced value of TBM, so you don't have multiple budget annual cycles to really start seeing that value.
And is that almost to try and get to more like an agile approach to the way that you guys are thinking of all that funding, more real-time systems? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, and it's not about the systems, obviously. It's just about understanding your costs. So I've implemented TBM at large, multi-billion-dollar companies before, and it took 3-4 years sometimes to be able to impact and influence. And sometimes the technology is what kind of got in the way. And for us, it's really more about a paradigm discussion of, what problem are you trying to solve? Where's the value? And how can you shift from an emotional discussion to a fact and database discussion? So it's more about just process and education, and then the technology will follow, and every company is different on that journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
Matt,
let's build. Yeah.
Maybe one thing just to add on to here is because I like that framing quite a bit. I think it gives the framework gives confidence that you really understand your financials, and that transparency kind of opens what has maybe been traditionally more of like a black box to people. And I just know, spending a lot of my history on the business side, understanding that gives you confidence to say, great, like now I have the ability to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you're willing to actually let way more happen over time. So it is that like move from emotional to facts really allows that conversation to open up in ways that I maybe would say not happening previously.
Sure. Tom, do you want to add there?
Yeah, I want to add one thing to that. I mean, I think that the biggest value that you get from TBM is trying to find a way to bring finance, technology, and the business all together. And what I've seen in other organizations, and Dan, exactly what I hoped he would say, which is it's IT is a black box. So what you can do, if you can do some things to help bridge that gap, to help solve those issues and be able to bring folks along, you're going to bring all of those folks together, and you're going to accomplish the mission of TBM, which is to drive the value and bring those stakeholders together.
Fantastic. So I want to test you guys on something. So one of the things that we found in State of TBM 2025, and that report's available if you go on the website, we can put a link in the chat as well for anybody who's interested. But we originally had identified 4 drivers of high performance for TBM. But as we were going deeper, one of the things we identified is that the average budget, tech budget, not IT budget, tech budget for the top performers was 12.3% of revenue. So that's high. So when you look at that, as we've been doing qualitative interviews, we start to see what we're calling a trust premium. And the idea is the people that do TBM, because they're breaking open the black box and they're having those conversations between tech, business, and finance, they're trusted to do more. So let's do this. Let's go for the CIO perspective first. Sheila, could you talk to that? And, is that something that you see?
Well, I can talk to the percentage, and I'll tell you that insurance, Dan, Dan and I have far lower percentages of revenue for that investment. What I would see around that is, starting with TBM for us too. If you think about problems that we're trying to solve, we're really focused on here. I just started this in the last 10 months, making the model operational and providing transparency of our financials. So that's a core premise for us, so that we can tighten our allocations. We're working on things like clarifying our service ownership and getting to basically a consistent monthly story. You've already heard it here with both business, finance, all the trio, business, finance, and technology, all using to understand the same story from the lens and the chair that they're sitting in. So the first problem that we've focused on tackling too is really around what I'll call decision quality and drivers behind some of the technology, so that our business leaders can understand the levers that they can pull to manage those expenses and the investment. And more than anything for us, for example, some of the early things that the business was able to see that they hadn't paid a lot of attention to in the past was, for every dollar of investment in new capability, there was also a very clearly associated increase in the cost of the run side of the business. So that correlation we've been able to draw and then put into place effective management practices across how do you actually start modernizing your run and actually optimizing it at the same time. The other thing that we have focused on that's much more tied to technology is, at the same time in the last year, we've really focused in on architectural disposition, understanding the full landscape and suite of applications that we have, understanding the state of those, whether they're aligned to current state or target state architectures or not. And then that, aligned with our TBM dashboarding, is helping us to make much better investment decisions around starting, continuing investment, and switching it to higher value opportunities. So in a nutshell, that's how we've approached it.
Excellent. Let's flip, Tom. We go from the CIO side. Let's go to the finance side. Give us your perspective on, how you're building trust and how you're using that within the organization to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on this before, and so I apologize for repeating myself, but I really think if you want to move forward, I've done this at 3 different organizations, and I hear a common thing upon entering these organizations. The first thing is IT's a black box. I don't know what I'm paying for. We can't make informed decisions. TBM, in the best case scenario, is getting all 3 groups together and aligned. So being able to have finance, tech, and business all aligned. And if you sit them down in a room and you talk to them about their problems, and then you show them the roadmap for TBM and how it can solve that, and then be able to start demonstrate by aligning your financials to the TBM taxonomy, by creating your views of services, by being able to put together things like product profitability. Once you're able to do that, you're able to get them all on board, and you're able to drive that value and then make those informed decisions together.
Tom, do you have, when you've done these, after you did the first one, you got the numbers 2 and 3, did you have kind of a certain go-to use cases that you started with, or, what was your recipe for success when you were getting started?
Yeah, I mean, what I think is really surprising for me is that in all three of the organizations that I've implemented this in, they've all been vastly different from a business perspective. I mean, one of them was an insurance provider, another one was a large-scale cooperative, and then the other one is this small IT managed service provider that I'm working for. And all three of the organizations had the exact same complaints. So what the go-to was very simple. It was get started. Look at what kind of data you have available to you today. Start mapping whatever kind of information you have to the taxonomy, whatever is relevant for your organization, and then just start building that trust as quickly as you possibly can. There's no, silver magic item. It's really as simple as what kind of available information do you have today from an IT finance perspective, and then start using what you have and applying it towards the taxonomy. That's really been the starting point.
So Dan, can you provide your thoughts along that too? Like where you've typically started, how have you gotten success early days?
Yeah, maybe a couple things. One, Sheila was one of the big sort of sponsors of TBM at Liberty when it first started, so big thanks to Sheila for that. I think honestly, the trajectory that we've continued to sort of like make progress on, it kind of goes back to some of Tom's comments. It's shared context as much as anything. So you're like walking people through and translating it in a way that people can sort of follow and understand that maybe are not traditional technologists. The second thing is actually get some wins. So it's like to Tom's point, like whatever data you have, use that to sort of highlight some opportunity areas and then go and execute on stuff. And kind of back to maybe your comment earlier on, do you actually get more sort of rope, if you will, with that trust getting built out? I think the answer for us has been, at least in terms of commitments over multi-year periods, which is always the mission critical aspect of things like large modernization efforts. And without that, it's really hard to commit to know that you're going to be able to get large legacy, either system retirements or modernize the work that you have. Because if you're sort of fighting for year in, year out budget decisions, it just, you don't have the confidence to go and invest in something that you know is going to take a couple of years to go and get out of. And I think that's been the big curve we've gone through with our business partners, to get that confidence, get that comfort to go and invest that, because they understand the implications if you don't. And I think that's been the big piece of what TBM's been able to bring and maybe shine a light on that, candidly, I certainly didn't understand before I was in this role. And a lot of our business leaders are sort of getting to see that at firsthand.
Quick follow-up to that, and then we'll go to the next question, Dan, is as you now think about you're more mature, you're doing, bigger things, are you reinventing how you do it, or are you building off of those foundations and just applying them to how you think about AI, how you're thinking about hybrid cloud? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of both. I think the foundations are mission critical because it's sort of like a shared understanding now that you brought everyone through. So we're trying not to interject net new changes to that framework, but we are building new capabilities that hang off the side of it and plug into it. And so I do think as you think about the world of where AI is going, it's like, how do you make sure people have the same transparency into the costs that are coming, the ultimate economics of what those costs are going to be? But it kind of goes back to the framework of I can trace my costs at a really detailed level. I understand the value that I'm going to be getting from these, and I have the ability to actually show that back to you so you understand where this is ultimately going. So I can make larger strategic decisions about where I'm going to put my capital, where I'm going to put my investment, and have confidence around that. So it's not a hard pivot on anything we're doing. It is expanding on top of that really strong fundamentals and base that we have in place.
Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pivot here for a sec. There's a question for Sheila in the chat. So I love the framing of modern tech moving us from reactive to proactive decision making. By the way, that's one of the 4 levers that you see in the high performing organizations. The question is, can you please expand on how an org should prepare themselves to take advantage of these technologies for proactive decision making?
Yes, so thank you for the question. We're actually looking at everything from an operating model approach as well. So it's not just about TBM, it's really ways of working. And so the approach that we've taken here is we are moving into a value stream aligned operating model, which basically means we're looking at front to back all of the insurance processes. We have strong business ownership of those processes for each of the value streams. And then from an adoption of AI, we're focused on two pieces of that. Of course, one is on the employee side. So how do we leverage AI within our core business? Think of your co-pilots, for example, and actually rolling out training programs for that. And we have also instituted we're moving to a more strong chapter model around training of the disciplines. That's more of a community-based practice as well. So that's one thing. And then on the other side, if you think about what I'll call more deep immersion in your business processes, we have a very strong governance process on how we look at use cases to be brought through that. And those all, of course, line up to our business value, and we make those decisions accordingly. So that's really the approach that we've taken. I think the culture shift of an organization, and we're in the middle of it too, just like everyone is something that you really can't minimize, because there's just a huge digital adoption piece of this that every organization will have to go through.
Excellent. And I mentioned before, if you get a chance, that state of TBM is in the chat. You'll see some really great insights on the proactive versus reactive and how people with TBM get ahead. So check that out. Okay, let's go to the last set of questions. Anybody who saw recently, Goldman estimated about $450 billion has been spent on AI, and they claim that there's been no impact on GDP. So Tahir, I'm going to throw this one to you to start. Question I'd like to have you is, talk a little bit about how you think about AI, and then where, as you're working with some of your companies, how you're thinking about getting AI out there, creating value with it, and then is there a link to TBM?
Sure, absolutely. So, unfortunately, AI is probably the most overused but misunderstood acronym or abbreviation out there. And most people really don't even know what it is. And we've diluted it to really be meaningless now. When you have a AI toothbrush, but you also have an AI predictive model on a 100 gigawatt solar farm, so people don't really even understand what they're talking about when they say AI, and it's been around since the 1950s. Yes, we're at an inflection point. So for us, we try to have a little bit more of a structured approach, kind of what Sheila was mentioning as well. You've got the personal productivity side, you've got corporate function side, then you've got operational technology side, and then you could have retail customers, whatever your business model is. So the first step is just get on the same page of what you're even talking about. And then after that, some light governance is needed to at least track some of the progress, because in 2024 it was FOMO, everybody was blasting investments. 2025 it was kind of like, oh crap, now what are we going to do? We invested all this money. So last year we focused on data foundations, digital literacy at the portfolio companies, and some lightweight governance to be targeted on your investments. And this year we're actually starting to see some real value use cases in performance optimization, predictive maintenance, route optimization at airports, staffing. There's on and on in every function. But if you dissect it in those different areas and then come up with use cases, and the beauty of what we do is we have 50 plus multi-billion-dollar companies, so you cross-pollinate all these use cases. So that's one side of it. And lastly, quickly, you also need to get your arm around all of the different players, from the platforms to the consulting firms to the actual providers to internal. So it's so much chaos. So for us, just getting these matrix aligned a little bit has helped at least navigate the value conversation. And I'll stop there. TBM does have a role, but I'll stop there.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, why don't you build a bit on what Tahir said and provide some of the perspective from the Liberty Mutual?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think, to your point, like, we've been using machine learning in our processes for decades. Like, it's the core of everything that we do. And so when you boil it down to some of the new and maybe more emerging generative applications, I do feel like it's stepping back and realizing this isn't a tool approach. Like, you're actually trying to create an ecosystem in which you're solving like specific business problems. And you're not leading with a tool, you're not leading with hype. It's like, I have a business problem, I'm trying to evolve, and I'm trying to change, and I'm applying, multiple components of my technology stack to go and tackle it. And the majority of this, and we were sort of talking about this even before we hopped on, it's the blocking and tackling of getting my data in order, getting my processes in order. It is business fundamentals. And if you do not get that right, you can layer as many AI tools as you want into it, and I think you're going to be sad on the back end of the ROI you get. So it's just making sure you're thinking about this in this broader ecosystem and not just sort of putting the next tool to work.
We were having a debate online with a few folks about a week or so ago, and everybody kind of centered around the idea like the technology isn't really the big change. The bigger change is that you have to adopt. You guys have hit on a couple. Governance is one. Measurement, the ability to see how we're changing. But one of the ones we also were talking about was change management. So let's go to Tom. Just curious, Tom, as you think about the change management side, how do you guys build that in, whether it's core or even up to what you're doing with AI now?
Yeah, I mean, so you talked about it from a governance perspective. I'll be very candid, and it goes back to the point that Tahir made, which is my organization is smaller. We're behind the curve from a FOMO standpoint. I am very, very, very much feeling that way as we go through this process. We're very, very early in the stages of our overall adoption from an AI standpoint. And so where we're really focusing and putting our efforts is on the governance side. And unfortunately, more dipping our toes in the water than doing full scale AI adoption at this point. So I'm going to have to defer to somebody else,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Let's go to final word for Sheila on that point.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. So
Sure.
I would say we're actually moving AI to scale in our company. We do have a dedicated approach to innovation. So I have a dedicated innovation team that sits and reports in directly to me. Yet I will say AI is everywhere and innovation needs to be happening everywhere in your company. So when we think about how we've approached it, some of our core principles are, number one, it has to be value driven. So what is the business challenge or opportunity that you're solving for? I think you've heard that from all of us. Number two, for us, it's also people led. So this augmentation is impacting ways of working, what people work on and how they do their job. So you have to get that culture shift as part of it. And then of course, responsibly managed, tying in with the secure aspects of your data that's going to be served up in a very much more open and digital perspective. And then for us, when we think about this, at the end of the day, we're starting with our business outcome. What customer and employee experience are we improving? What risk are we reducing? What cost or cycle time are we focused on taking out? And we really are ensuring that there's joint accountability, consistent measures of success across the one team, business and technology, so that we're all marching toward that same goal. And the other thing that I would say that has helped us to be successful is moving to more of what I would call a common intake process, so that you have a clear line of sight across your whole ecosystem as to what are the asks, because AI is a way to solve for those, but you still are going to be having to manage that within the existing legacy ecosystem that we all already have. So it's really balancing all of that at the same time.
Excellent. So one thing I'm going to do here just in the last minute, I'm going to share a quick page here for anybody who would like to hear more about these conversations that we're having. May 11th and 12th, Board of Directors Invitational. There's the QR code. This is our event that's targeted for VP and above. We have a lot of great speakers. Martha Heller, who's one of the premier search consultants out there, is going to talk about leadership skills. We're going to have Jamie and John talking about how they're using agentic in their companies. Karen's going to talk about autonomy. Laura, who's the chair of the board, is going to lead a CIO panel. We're going to have a couple folks talking about tokenomics and things like that from ISG. Lots of great conversations. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you. You can always, as I said, grab that registration code, and we will get your information and we will get back to you. Now, with that, that's all the time we had for today. I will hang out on the call here for a bit if people have any questions. I know a few of the board members may have to go. If anybody can hang around for a minute or two, great. But if anybody wants to stay and ask us questions, follow up, or just have any questions about the council, we'd be happy to entertain it. But thank you for your time, and thank you to the board members for joining us. It was a great session. Thank you so much.